name's Artemis, and I'm here today to let you in on another little thing that makes us inexcusably British, and that is the way that we do Christmas. Of course, everybody does things slightly differently, and Christmas is a whole fucking event. It's like a 3-month thing for some of us fuckers, so I'm just gonna go through the day itself and let the rest of you fight over whether I'm right or wrong. Obviously, I'm fucking right. The food and drink are obviously a huge part of the day, and of course the roast turkey takes centre stage. Now, there are some modern ideas that say you should have things like the turducken, or maybe even artisanal local sourced fish. Well, fuck that noise, alright? You need a proper turkey, okay? You want the kind of gentle, amazing, beautiful creature that you first saw when it was hatched from the entire nest, and you got to pick it out. You saw its character, you saw exactly what kind of bird it could grow to be. You nurtured it, you sponsored it as it grew into this magnificent, amazing animal. And then you get it plucked and cling film wrapped, brought to you by some burly butcher with no remorse. Now that is Christmas. And of course, there's only really one true British way to cook this bird, and that is by forgetting to defrost the fucker in time, running to the freezer, whipping it out, and desperately trying to cram it next to as many radiators as you can fit, hoping to God it might actually be somewhat less solid by the morning, throwing it into the oven for what must be about an absolute week with whatever veg is within reach, because at this stage, fuck it, let's just hope that we have something to fucking eat on the day. Cranking up the temperature as high as possible, hoping to fuck that might actually thaw out that block of ice that's in the middle of the poor fucker. After 20 to 60 hours worth of cooking, you have to crack out the wood saw to try and hack off the dried pieces of its corpse. And at the end of this, you only really eat 2 or 3 mouthfuls before resigning the rest of it to either the dog or for sandwiches for the next, 3 months. Because you bought a bird that could feed the 5,000 when there's only 4 of you fucking eating it. Aside from the turkey, there is one other type of meat that is incredibly important at Christmas, and no, you horny little furries, put your dick away, that's not what I meant. It is, of course, the gloriousness that is the pig in blanket, which is just a simple little sausage that's wrapped in bacon, and for some reason we've put it into law that you're only allowed those on Christmas Day. This is kind of odd because British people dream about these things throughout the entire year, and yet we just have it that once a fucking year. I mean, hell, you could roast that shit up on the barbecue for all I care. That's some good eating. When it comes to the veg, no one really cares apart from the roast potatoes, which are, of course, the third most important part of the dish, really. They've got to be done in goose fat because that's the spirit of Christmas. You can't have lard or beef dripping. It's got to be some posh, authentic animal's fucking adipose tissue. Because we're British and we have a war against flavour and taste, we also have to make sure we have a good supply of fucking swede, carrot, and the dreaded Brussels sprout, which I'm fairly certain no one has ever actually enjoyed, but for some reason we punish ourselves each year by jamming them on the plate and forcing them down our throat. Have you ever seen the Da Vinci Code where you got that monk that's whipping himself? That's what fucking Brussels sprouts are to us, okay? We know we've been dicks throughout the year, so we're gonna eat these horrible little balls of shit, and that will even things out. And of course, that's just the food that we've covered. I mean, and that's not even all of it. You can eat whatever the fuck you want. Christmas is the day where you can just say, you know what, fuck it. I want to eat 40 chocolate fingers in 10 minutes, so I'm gonna do that. You know what? Screw it. I will eat 5 kilos worth of Cheez-Its because it's Christmas. You see that entire block of cheese? One bite. One fucking bite. Gone. You should also see what happens with the fucking drink. You see, Christmas Day is where it's basically Scotland and Ireland, the whole nation over, because it's acceptable to drink at any time of the day. And quite frankly, if you haven't cracked open a bottle of the hard stuff by 9:30, then you either haven't got your family staying with you, or you're not doing Christmas right. Of course, the routine of the day has so many variations that it's really difficult to actually nail it down, but of course, there are some very true staples to the whole experience. You have to wake up early as fuck. You can't miss out on any Christmas. You gotta keep it all as packed in and eventful as possible. If you have been dealt a shitty hand by life and are burdened by kids, then good fucking luck sleeping in past 6 a.m. The screaming little shits will be scratching and clawing for their fucking Fortnite machines loud enough to wake up everyone in a 10-mile fucking radius. This is usually around the point where you start to realise just how acceptable it is to get blackout drunk in the morning at Christmas. Usually the first thing to do for a lot of homes, or at least for us, is the stockings. Traditionally, the only way you would get presents, whether it be a fucking orange or a lump of coal. Welcome to Britain, that's about as exciting as we get. These days it's more like a novelty thing. You get loads of shitty, funny little presents that you're obviously going to forget after you've opened the 5th pair of socks from some aunt you never knew existed. Once you're through all of that mess, you're onto the main event, the big Christmas presents that have been sat under the Christmas tree for weeks. They've sat there taunting you with their size and their splendour, and only now can you open them up and realise the true disappointment of an economy cross-cut shredder, or a luxury 20-piece Tupperware set, or the dreaded, I've forgotten it's someone's fucking Christmas present coming up, and I've had to go to the works from some relative you honest to God didn't know was part of your family. Hope you enjoy that book about psychic dogs this Christmas. By the time all of this is done, it's usually around 8:30 AM and you're blinking into the sunlight, wondering what the actual fuck are you going to do with your day for the next 12 to 14 hours, aside from sitting around awkwardly making small talk with people you only see once a year and getting super pissed off at your Twitter feed for not refreshing fast enough. You struggle along until you eventually make it to Christmas dinner, which for some reason is at 2 in the fucking afternoon. After that, you enter a food coma and settle down to watch the Queen's speech. Through a haze, you start to wonder who the fuck let their nan on TV and what is she even talking about. A couple of terribly awkward family games later, and of course some obligatory kids films that the BBC has shut out, are all about ready to literally fucking die. Ugh. Okay, here it is. The biggest obstacle to enjoying Christmas, and potentially the most dangerous part of it all. The family. You see, us Brits don't have a Thanksgiving to take the edge off of Christmas, so it means it's Christmas that acts as the big family reunion, which means all the fucking in-laws and all the other relatives have to come down and judge the shit out of your squalid little fucking dunghole, as if they don't live in a fucking thriving crack and prostitution estate. Then of course all the really distant family members swarm in, like fucking locusts, to eat all the good biscuits before anyone else gets a look. And you have to seriously consider how exactly you could be related to such heartless fucking monsters. And then of course there's the old fuckers, and now I'm not talking about age or your grandparents, I'm talking about the ones that seem to have been born way back when they were mining for coal. Okay, everyone's got that great aunt that isn't so fucking great, that goes on a racist tangent every Christmas and we all sit there awkwardly pushing peas around our plate. It's just going on about bloody fucking immigrants. Again. This is where you need to be careful, because if you have cracked open the alcohol, you're going to be tempted to tell her to put her copy of the fucking Daily Mail down and cheer the fuck up because it's 2018. Don't do that. That's what starts the nuclear war, okay? We're all just politely waiting until she dies, and then we can forget about it all. It's also UK law that any family friend is attributed the title of uncle. Any Tom, Dick or Harry that served with your granddad in World War II is automatically Uncle Pete or the like, which makes your great-grandmother look like the absolute fucking village bike. You get all of these people together and completely forget about their laws of physics and cram them all into a semi-detached bungalow because, yeah, that'll fucking work. Everyone gets kicked out of their bedrooms for these fuckers that you only see once a year, and the sleeping arrangements get so imaginative that you're half waiting for your fucking cousin to crack out the banjo and try and make you squeal like a pig. I tell you, you've never quite loathed your family enough until you've all had to share one fucking bathroom. Nan's been on the sherry for 4 hours and only brought one pad. That's the true meaning of Christmas, okay? Cleaning up the piss from 4 different generations. Finally, you find your way to the meal and everybody crams around that table, sitting on chairs of varying height because we don't have a single fucking one that matches another. Inevitably, someone will make you say the Lord's Prayer before you're allowed to eat, but no fucker is praying. You're all sitting there calculating your fastest route to the pigs in blankets and whether Aunt Janice is going to get there first with her giant fucking pig hands. That's when the fucking gloves come off. There is no such thing as family as soon as they say, dig in. Suddenly, you're wielding forks as if they're swords and you're dueling over the last roast potato. The meal finally ends and we're all entering that little food coma stage, and then it always fucking happens, some absolute tit of an uncle who's only here because of some shotgun marriage suggests, why don't we play a family game? No, Gary, how about we fucking don't? How about we go and collapse in front of BBC One and you shut the fuck up? Charades is always a favourite, and you have to sit there wincing with the rest of the millennials as all the references are so dated, you're only actually going to recognise them if you were born during the fucking Blitz. It's finally your turn, and some absolute jizz fountain gives you the prompt of Emmanuel, or even worse, the 40-year-old virgin, and you end up making your poor perverted Uncle Philip turn more shades of fucking red than the Dulux catalogue. You're finally allowed to migrate slowly back to the safety of the TV when some old fucker insists on silence so they can hear the blessed words of the sovereign during the Queen's speech. It's around this point where the dreaded Brexit argument is going to take place, and that's it. That's it. All over. Christmas is fucking done. Go back to your fucking homes. We'll do this shit next year. I am not dealing with that. So there you have it, that is exactly how the British do Christmas, or at least how a lot of us do it. I'm sure it variates, and that's not a word, but it is now. It variates. It fucking variates across the country. Different regions do it a different fucking way. Different families fuck up their day in magnificent, splendorous ways that we can't even conceive of yet. Obviously, being truly British, despite all of this, we maintain a stiff upper lip and just go through it. Go through the motions every Christmas, because that's what we do. And obviously we actually somehow enjoy it every time as well. But there you go, I hope that enlightens the rest of the world on how exactly us repressed, polite bastards deal with this one important day of the year. You might notice that not once did I actually mention anything religious. That's because we mostly fucking forget that it's a religious holiday. These days it's just buy me shit and I might buy you something. God, maybe that is the spirit of modern Christmas.